Hey everybody, welcome back to Tavern Talks. I am your wonderful host for the evening, and we have a new co-host and a new guest. Tonight we are joined here with Ravensridge Emporium, as well as our wonderful new helper over here at the Misfits, Bard's Tavern. So, real quick, I can give you each a chance to kind of introduce yourself since you're new to the channel, and then we will kind of break down how this whole thing goes, which is real simple. And we're going to start with our new co-host here. So let everybody know who you are and where they can find you, Jacob.
Hey guys, I am Jacob from Bard's Tavern. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me at Tabletop Misfits. And of course, I play in some of the other games and things like that. So it'll be awesome. And I can't wait to sit down and talk to Brandon tonight because it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, buddy. All right. And of course, our actual guest for the evening, Ravensridge Emporium, our very own Brandon, is here, and he is going to give us a breakdown of what Ravensridge Emporium is.
Yeah, hi folks. My name's Brandon. We're one of the four Ravens of Ravensridge Emporium here in Australia. And we're an indie game design studio as well as artisan dice makers and a bunch of other TTRPG props and all that kind of stuff. You can find us over on Instagram or TikTok at the Ravensridge Emporium. I think we're on YouTube as well, or Blue Sky. Basically, all of the socials you can find us. Or if you want to go peruse our wares, we're also at theravensridgeemporium.com. Thanks for having me, guys.
Definitely. Getting that set up right now since we're running a little late tonight. So we're going to double quick, make sure we get our timers set up properly in our chat so that if you do walk in early or through the middle of the show, you're able to get that quick click and find out who our guest is for the evening. So make sure I drop that there in a minute. But yeah, so tonight, for those that are brand new to the channel, we do this real easy. This is like herding cats. This is the best channel. This is the best show. I love it because we kind of dive down a question and then we see how far that question lasts us. And we've got about an hour to do that. And sometimes that could be an entire session with one question, but normally we get a few questions in at least. And of course, they'll be wrapped around by our wonderful guest for the evening. So I'm going to start with my normal 3 questions, which I love asking because it kind of gives me a background of where your life comes from when it comes to the TTRPG space. And the first one is what was your first experience to tabletop role-playing games?
Ooh, yeah. Okay. My very first experience with a tabletop game was D&D, like advanced D&D, like the really old
second edition.
Yeah.
Nice.
Obviously, I assume I don't look old enough to have been playing that, but I was sort of fortunate enough to have an uncle that lived at home for a while, and he was like a huge nerd, and my dad wasn't the biggest nerd, so I never really got exposed to that kind of stuff until my uncle moved in, and he was like, "Hey, man, I see you really like Lord of the Rings and stuff. Do you want to try Magic the Gathering?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, I do!" And whipped out all of his old cards, and I instantly fell in love. And then he was like, "Okay, cool. I can tell this kid is into some nerdy stuff. Hey, have you heard of Dungeons and Dragons?" And then one thing led to another, and he started running a game for me and my buddies when I was in high school, and I just like absolutely fell in love with it there. So AD&D was my first experience with tabletop stuff. Yeah, and haven't looked back since. Absolutely love it.
So I have a question on that. Are any of the other members in Ravensridge, are those like your original friends that you actually played with?
Oh, that's a good question. No, they're not actually. I had one of the Ravens. He's like my best friend. He lives down in Tasmania in Australia here, and him and I have been friends for a very, very long time. And we like kind of got into role playing games at the same time, but because we lived in different places, it was kind of in an isolated pocket. And then I remember like one day just chatting to him and being like, "Hey, I've been playing like this thing called Dungeons and Dragons," and he was like, "No way, me too." And so it was kind of this serendipitous thing where we were both just like, yeah, into it at the same time. But yeah, none of the folks from that game, unfortunately, are with us. But yeah.
But you have somebody at least that has that level of experience that you have with that as well, which is great.
Totally. Exactly.
So the second question I'd like to ask, and this is kind of one of the ones that I see more so happening because we are in a space where we're not just playing the game anymore. We're actually building things for it. We have a passion for this beyond just, it's a game, it's fun. No, there's more to it. So my question then comes to is what was the spark that started that journey? So when you first started playing, most people are like, "Oh, cool, that was a fun game. I can play it a couple times and I'm good, and I don't have to deal with this ever again if I don't want to."
Yeah.
But what kept you coming back?
Oh, that's a good question too. I think it was probably like the fact that, you know, when you play a video game and all that kind of stuff, you know, a role playing game, it's it's still ultimately linear in the sense that you're limited by the scope of choice that you can do as an agent in the game, and even board games and all that kind of stuff, which I had played with, or Magic the Gathering at the time, like it's still very like limited in the scope of like what you can do. Even simulation games, right? Sims, it's got so many things you can do in like the game of Sims, but it's still limited. And then I think coming in, I had that moment when my uncle was running games for us, you know, I don't know, 5 sessions into something where I was just like, wait a second, I can just do anything that I want, or that anything that I want my character to do. And that was like maybe the first seed of that like realization about how amazing and incredible role-playing games can be. But then as I kind of moved away from D&D and started exploring other systems, I realized that wow, they can be a really great platform to just like explore like a game where you have unlimited possibilities. There's also this incredible element of like being able to collaboratively weave a story. And so as I moved into other systems that emphasize the story game element of role-playing games a lot more, I sort of fell in love with the fact that you can sit down with a group of people at a table and just come up with like an incredible story that everybody is so emotionally invested in and can go on so many different twists and turns that you can never expect. And so I think like there was probably never a definite moment where I was like, hell yeah, this is like what I want to do. But there was definitely that gradual understanding and realization about how like expansive and beautiful this hobby can be.
Yeah. So the collaboration kind of really pulled you in, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
The idea that the collaboration and I think it's fun because I do believe there's always those moments in a TTRPG journey where you go from I can do this to I can do anything. Like there are no boundaries, right? Especially as a player, because you start realizing you're like, well, if this was a video game, I could jump, I could move, crouch, I could pick things up, I could throw things. That's about it, right? Like
Right. Yeah.
utilize the tools that they provide to you. But in Dungeons and Dragons, it can be anything.
Absolutely.
And that's awesome.
What was that character for you? Like that one that was like your spark?
Ooh.
Like the one like if we get in a conversation about D&D like at a cafe or anything, you go, let me tell you a story about this character.
Ooh. Let me think. You know, it's funny. I haven't actually played too many characters in the sense that I ended up being the GM most of the time.
You could pick an NPC that sticks out to you the most.
Yeah.
One that you like invested a lot into.
There was one NPC. So a little bit of lore for the Ravensridge for you. The reason we're called the Ravensridge Emporium is because the first homebrew setting that I made for Dungeons and Dragons was a like Gothic Victorian setting called Ravensridge. And it was like, it had all of those classic Gothic tropes, you know, werewolves, vampires, powerful houses, and all that kind of stuff. And so I was the GM for that. And that was like one of my first sort of forays into being a GM and doing world building and stuff. And there was an NPC that I played in that kind of was the main point of contact for the players, you know, when they needed something done or they needed some help. And he was called the Cockroach, and he was this gang leader who lived in like this underground den, opium den basically, and he ran a lot of like drug trade and smuggling and all that kind of stuff. But he was just like a really like likable kind of guy that you know, I just absolutely loved him because he had like a lot of complexity in his background. But he had like such a easy way to sort of build rapport with the characters, and all of the characters ended up really, really liking him, which made it feel really valuable to me because I was like, cool, I spent all this time making this character interesting, and the players are biting. You know, they're taking that bait and they're you know, buying into him as well. So, and he ended up being like a bit of a mainstay character throughout that entire campaign. It was like a 3-year campaign or something, and that was definitely a character that I fell into very, very heavily. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Did you ever have a time like where you brought him back, like as a, hey guys, do you remember this guy?
We did another campaign in Ravensridge that was set like 20 years in the future, and I alluded to him because the players were playing like a gang that was sort of in the city of Ravensridge, you know, in the slums of it all, and I alluded to him sort of doing some stuff in the background, but that campaign kind of fizzled out before I got an opportunity to do that. But I had the plan to do that, you know, it was in the works.
It was there. The idea was there. It just never happened. And sometimes that's what happens with players. Like they don't take the bite you wanted them to take. You're like, oh, here's the idea, but it happens.
I'm curious. Do you guys have a character that's like your spark character, the one that you fell into the most?
Ooh, so I actually have a god character that I made that's an NPC for me, and it's based off of the main guy for Cryptozoic. And this was the thing before I started my homebrew, and I bought this and I never changed the name for it or anything. And so I made a little mini of him and everything else.
Oh, sick.
And so like that's my thing that ties my whole world of PageWrite into stuff for me, and that's my homebrew world. So I love that aspect, and I always ask people like a lot of stuff because I want to know every little detail of your character so that I could go, oh, I see where you're coming from, because I know I've kind of taken that same journey.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
And I have 3. Now, mind you, I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons for over 20 years now, so it's been a while. My first is my actual first character, which wasn't actually a Dungeons and Dragons character at the beginning. I did collaborative writing when I was very young, and like before middle school, elementary school type stuff. And that character then found his like actual stats during Dungeons and Dragons. But I named my dog that. This was a very there's a character in one of the published campaigns that I worked on that character was presented once again. So that character lives in, that is the epitome of me though. Like that was my envision, my own self in that world. And then we have the Tavern Keeper, who is the idea of what this is. It is this, and this all stemmed from a deployment that we did about 5 years ago, where there was 11 of us playing a game for 6 months from 5 different countries, 3 different military organizations. It was a lot of fun. But in the end, our wizard, who was actually an Australian at the time, he's a major in the Australian Air Force, and he had a wizard character who presented an ever-growing tavern to my character, who was a barkeeper. And the idea was that when he returned, he would take back the tavern. But until then, my character was designated the host for the tavern, so he could never leave, but he could always bring people to him. And they only came and they appeared when they needed it the most. And that's where the tavern came from.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And we did a whole thing on this. If you go back to our older episodes, our second year, we would bring we'd bring a person in here, and they would bring a player character to the tavern, and then we would have this one-on-one like therapy session for an hour. And it was hilarious. But some of them were really good stories that they're bringing. And then the story is that every time a story was told in the tavern, it would actually write itself to the tavern. So if you think of the way the tavern's built, it's built with stone. So each stone has its own story on it, which were written by the other players that walked through the tavern.
Wow.
So
that's awesome.
This ever-growing history and the literal structure of it. That's sick.
So we might return to that next year, depending. We've got some ideas. So those are the 2 main ones that I will definitely go back and forth. And those are my actual characters that I played. I had a third, which is an NPC who is kind of similar to your cockroach. His name is Afon Silverleaf, and he was designed off of Red Reddington from the Blacklist show. So he was the manipulator of everything underground, but he always helped the party, but only just enough so he could get a little bit extra on his end as well.
Sure.
So So that brings me then to the third final question for at least the beginning, and then we'll start asking crazy questions because that's what we do.
Sure.
Is when did, and it seems like you kind of hinted at it, but when did you finally pick up the mantle of dungeon master or game master, depending on what system you're playing?
Yeah.
And what did that look like?
So I think it was I had played in that home game with my uncle, with my buddies from high school, and then we played that all through high school and ended up graduating, and then I moved out of home to head to university. And I moved to like a nearby city because I grew up in a country town. And so when I did that, I moved in with a bunch of housemates and stuff for the first time. And I think it was then that I actually moved in with that friend of mine, Nicholas, the other Raven who lived in Tasmania. We finally moved in together because he was going to the same university. So that was really cool. And then we decided, because we'd both sort of been on this journey together, that we should do like a Dungeons and Dragons game, and we ended up doing a Westmarch style campaign.
Nice.
And we had a lot of friends that we met from uni that wanted to play Dungeons and Dragons. So we had like 3 GMs, and we had about 30 or so players or something like that. And we would just do this thing where we'd like post these like listings basically in this guild hall that all the players were in. And they were in the middle of this endless forest that nobody had mapped out. And so there would be like these quest listings that would come up on like a notice board there. And then it would be left to the players to sort of organize a session, and whatever GM wrote that particular quest would like put their availability up and then run games. And it was actually really effective at like eliminating that strife that all GMs have of trying to organize a game, because it was in the onus of the players. Like, you guys want to play D&D? Awesome. Tell me when and we'll do it. And that worked really, really well. And it was like it was a very intimidating start to like being a GM. But it was cool because we kind of, everything was parceled down into just like one session is one quest that you're sort of going on, then you return back to this guild hall, and then maybe a new assemblage of like players will go on another quest later down the line. And so sometimes I'd do like 3 quests over the course of a couple of weeks, like 3 sessions, and then I wouldn't have a quest or a session for like a month or something, because other GMs would be running quests, or I'd need to write some more quests up and stuff. So it was good in that element that I had a bit of like freedom. The cadence allowed me some pockets where I could write more quests, and got to have a big experience with all sorts of players of all different skill levels and stuff. And so that was probably my first foray as a GM, and then I kind of was the forever GM almost from there on out.
Yeah, that seems to happen.
Right.
They always they tell you 2 reasons you'll be a forever GM. One, you just love to write, and it's just something you enjoy. The other one is you're the most passionate about Dungeons and Dragons, and then that's the only way you're going to play. So I definitely feel that. It's interesting though.
Being a player or a GM? What do you prefer?
Oh, GM, straight up.
GM, yeah.
For me, I don't know. I like both.
I do like both,
because I guess I've GM'd enough that I'm kind of like, okay, well, to get like more out of another GM, it's that whole thing. Like, it's me pulling this out, because you may have another GM that's like, oh, this is good, and I'm like, no, I want more. Like, come here, and you pull it out of them, and then they start becoming like, I guess, iron sharpening iron almost, because then they can play in one of your games, and you pull the stuff out of them that they're like, whoa, man, like, you asked me this question, I had never thought about that. And it turns into this like beautiful thing. I always compare D&D and everything to like a really nice dance, because you're trying to do this where the players are doing everything fun, you're doing everything fun, and you enjoy it the whole time. And if one of those falters, that's when you have games that fizzle out because everybody stops having fun or whatever. Exactly. So it's really writing that beautiful story together. So.
And I think that's a good way to put it too with the dance, because then you switch partners, right? Like, then you want to see what they're going to pull, what you're going to pull. I do challenge every GM though, especially if you're starting to feel like you've kind of hit your peak and you're like, man, I don't know if I could be any better than I am. I very much challenge people to go jump into a game, because when you're on the other side it just feels so much different sometimes. And just make sure that you do it with a sense of like humbleness, I guess would be the best way to put that, so that we don't worry about, so you're not worrying about how they're GMing, you're just enjoying the ride. Because sometimes we as GMs who are long-term GMs are like, I could have done that. No. We don't do that. We don't do that. That's a bad idea. And I recommend that for most GMs nowadays. I mean, I GM'd constantly for 4 or 5 years, and I felt like I kind of hit that point where it was like, I hit the slump. I was like, okay, I'm doing the same thing. I'm just repeating. I'm changing skins, but I'm not really adjusting or changing anything. And even if your players are having fun, you still want to improve, right? Like that's part of your journey as a GM.
Exactly.
And going off of that, that's one of the things I feel like where, like to be a better writer, they say you read all other writers' books, you get better that way. And I think that's the really good thing about being another player, because it opens your eyes up to more. And kind of like what you said on, you're doing this stuff and you don't want to say, yeah, I can do better than this person, but you're thinking in the back of your mind, what would I have changed in this story to, progress this or something? That's actually one of the reasons, because I have 20 years as a DM player too, that I got into being a GM and everything, was because I had so many bad ones, and I was like, I have to do this, like, doing different things, and I was like, man, like I'm not enjoying it. I make a decision as a character and it burns out a whole entire campaign, and they're like, no, we're done, like we're not playing anymore because of a decision I made as a character. I'm like, you're supposed to be the leader in this group and lead us, be able to get us from A to B. If I make a decision, you should be able to play off of that and be like, okay, what this happens instead.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
I had a lot of guys that, because of one little thing, they just broke, and I was like, guys, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, I think for that though, you as the veteran GM that's kind of floating around, you need to take them like after the game and be like, hey, is there any way I can help you?
This is me starting out, so I didn't know how to take people aside. I was like, I'm learning this too. So but now I do that though, where I take somebody and they go, hey, can you run a game for me? I'm like, okay, but is this your idea? And they're like, yeah. I said, okay, I want you to run this game for me, and I'll play as your character, but you tell me. And I said, you ask me what you think that I want to know about it. So I'll try and throw little things out there and be like, hey, what about this? What do you think? You got a frog theme going. What are there other guys you think with this? Do you want tribes? Like, what else do you envision in this? And a lot of people, I find it's really, they're not trying to take a nibble in it. They're trying to take the whole bite. And it's like, you can't create your whole world in one day. It doesn't work out that way.
So how long is now is Ravensridge still the main world that you play in, or have you moved from that since then?
So we me and my main group, we play online. So it's like all of the Ravens play together, and then we have a couple of ancillary folks. But we have got a system or a cadence now, the way we play, because we're sort of really engrossed in the design space. We're finding it very valuable, just as the quote before of like, if you want to be an author, read a bunch of other books. We're playing as many different systems as we can. So we have a cadence where we play basically like mini campaigns, maybe like 12 sessions to the max, and every single time we'll rotate who's the GM and what system we're playing. And we've been doing that for like, I don't know, 2 or 3 years now. And that has been such an excellent way to like expose yourself to other stories and other GM styles and, explore your abilities as a player too. Because I feel like I'm stronger as a GM, but I definitely need to learn a lot more about how to be a good player. And so this has been a good experience to sort of start to hone those skills. And I even, back to what we were talking about before, not only like if you're a GM and you want to get better, switching to the player role, but switching to a different system as well can teach you a lot about how to like craft different types of stories and that kind of thing. So that's kind of the cadence we run now. And I actually don't think I've played actual Dungeons and Dragons for like a good, I don't know, 4 years or something like that.
Oh, wow.
Like one shot here and there. Like, I haven't even looked at the 2024 rules or anything, because I've just
I have so many questions now. Like my brain's going like this now. The first question I'm going to ask then is, of the games you've played over the last 4 or 5 years, which system have you enjoyed the most as a game master, not as a player?
As a game master, that's an easy question. Finally, Dread. If you guys have heard of Dread.
Ooh, there we go.
I've heard of it. I haven't gotten to try that yet.
And you're playing
Yeah,
a mini campaign in Dread.
those ones we usually do like 1 to 3 shots.
I was like, those
We
are like
kind of do
one.
those sort
Yeah,
of as fillers, but yeah, Dread I absolutely love. Like the mechanics of Dread are so easy to learn, and the
yeah,
player creation is like really, really simple and easy. So I find it's a great gateway game as well. So I've played Dread a lot with my family members that have sort of been like, "What is role-playing games?" And I'm
yeah.
like, "Here, let's play one. Let's sit down. We're going to play Dread."
Mm.
And I just love how much support the mechanics give to you as a GM to build that tension. Because for a horror story, tension is everything.
Yeah.
And when you've got a literal tower in the middle that is slowly crumbling, that everybody can see, and they know when it falls, something disastrous is going to happen.
Yo.
That is just like, it takes so much work off of you because you can just be like, do some nice descriptions and get the players engaged with some questions, and then the tower does the rest. So I absolutely love Dread. It's probably my favorite role playing game, hands down.
Oh, that's an interesting one because I know you said most of your stuff you play online, and you said Dread, and I was like, you can't play Dread online. That doesn't work
Yeah.
like that.
No, that's right. Yeah, that's the exception where we sort of play sometimes when we get together. When Nicholas travels up for a convention or something,
Yeah,
and we've
yeah.
got a couple of weeks together. So yeah, but yeah, of the online ones, I think my favorite one has probably been Mothership.
Okay.
I really love Mothership. I'm usually not super into like sci-fi games, but Mothership
Yeah,
I think does a
same.
really excellent job, and the pre-written adventures for Mothership are like beyond any other pre-written adventures I've seen for any other game. They're
Oh,
just
wow.
so excellently written, and the way like sometimes I find I've run a couple of like Dungeons and Dragons supplements and stuff before, and they're like I feel like they're not particularly like functional. They're really good to
Hmm.
like inspire some ideas and all that kind of stuff, especially if you've been playing in the Sword Coast or whatever, the Forgotten Realms. But like as a functional object, I find they kind of lack. Like I feel like I still need to do a lot of heavy lifting as a dungeon master to run these games, these pre-written modules. But Mothership, I feel like I could flick through a book, an adventure module of Mothership, and I would know enough to run it as long as I had the book with me at the table,
Oh, wow.
um,
That's awesome.
which is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. I think of you because I feel very similar. Now I've got a couple examples of other third party D&D adventures, especially the one that I've written in, that I feel they kind of did the same thing. But what they did is they based it off the original second edition box sets, which means
Oh yeah.
everything's already put into a box, so you just run with the box and you're good to go. So you get character sheets, or you get not character, you get items, you get events, you get
Yeah.
encounters. All of it's built in its own self, so you really don't need to have the whole D&D set like you do in a lot of the normal
Nice.
stuff nowadays. But that's interesting. I haven't played Mothership yet. I started diving into sci-fi last year at some conventions, just trying it out, and it's still not my forte. I'm not good at sci-fi, but I don't have to be because we now have a whole team of us now, which makes my life easier.
That's true.
They run the sci-fi stuff. So then Mothership's kind of the one you like to play as a game master. Which one have you experienced so far now, since you've had the opportunity to play more so as a player than as a game master sometimes? What's the system you've enjoyed the most as a player then?
Ooh, I think it's also Mothership. I've actually played in Mothership more than I've run it. Yeah, playing in Mothership is great, but I've also had the fortune of playing with Nicholas, who is an excellent GM. So, and he's very good at online stuff too. I'm not as good as online. I feel like I need a bit of that interaction between a person sitting at my table to sort of make me feel the most comfortable as a dungeon master. And I really like doing props, and I almost also really like the ceremony of like everybody getting together and you like have a meal together as well as a break in between. And I really love that element of getting together. So online has sort of been a tricky adjustment for me, but I mean, COVID kind of made you have to get
made everybody get used to it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but yeah, so Mothership is like a really good one to play in. We've also been playing. I really enjoy playtesting our own games, which is hopefully unsurprising.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, my partner, she ran a game. Oh, I think it must have been last year where we were sort of developing a year zero hack that was kind of like a seafaring one. And we called it 0 Pieces of 8. I thought that was pretty funny.
Oh, that's cool.
And that was really, really good. And that was one of her first times GMing, and she did an excellent job at that. And that was a really fun system. It was one of those times like as we've developed games, sometimes there's been moments where we sit down and play test a game and we're like, bugger, this is absolute garbage. But
Yes.
other times you like throw stuff together and you know, the rarer times, and you're like, damn, this is actually really, really fun right off the bat. And that was one of those times, which was both really validating for a game design perspective, but it was also just great to play in. Really enjoyed playing in those sort of systems. What are your guys' favorite systems besides D&D? That's the caveat.
Oh yeah, absolutely. My favorite system right now is not Dungeons and Dragons. I've been playing for too many years,
Okay.
and it really kind of bores
Yeah.
me at this point.
Yeah.
Hopefully they don't cancel me on here. So it's like I run 90% at conventions of Dungeons and Dragons. I have two right now. One is Shadow Dark. I'm hooked. I've been playing Shadow Dark now for almost a year now, fully. We do it with our home table here at the house, because we have so many players. Dungeons and Dragons just doesn't work. We run it between a 9 and 11 person table, so it's a lot of people, and we do it in a very you help me create the story mentality. So I'll roll a die. I roll a d10, and then whatever, I count the numbers of players around the thing, and when we hit that player, I'm like, all right, you answer that question. I'm not answering that question. You answer that question.
Yeah, that's cool.
What I've realized though is not only is it cool, it has made the players invest more into the game than I ever thought it would. Because even little things like this last time we did, we ran into some very strong NPCs in the capital city that they're currently getting ready to potentially invade. I don't think it's a smart idea right now at level 2, but let's go. I'm gonna let them do what they want to do. I'm very much persuading them against it, but I'm not going to tell them no. But I looked at one of my players and I said, "What's the color code? Like, what is the color theme for this?" And he was like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, every banner has a color theme. Like, you see soldiers in front of you with a color theme. You see the Inquisitors, which are these mage hunters with this color scheme. What is the color scheme?" And he was like, "Oh, it's red and white, like the original Templars." And he wants the Iron Cross to it. And I was like, "Okay, cool." And then now everybody's kind of leaning in to learn more about the story. And I'm like, I didn't even tell that part of the story. Like, I don't have to do this. That's my hands, be done with it. The other one, and this is the one Jacob knows because I'm biting at the bit to run this, I just have not had time or energy, is the One Ring. I'm a huge Tolkien fan, like beyond huge Tolkien fan. But I won't go too much into that because that's a journey for this year for the channel. So we're gonna dive into that one. What about you, Jacob?
Oh, sorry.
So
they don't.
So for me, like one of the ones that I really want to get into this year, because I mean, let's just face it, I love all RPGs. Like James can attest. Like he'll be like, "Hey, what'd you get in this week?" I'm like, "Oh, some Vampire the Masquerade." "What'd you get in this week?" "Oh, D&D." "Oh, what'd you get?" And it will almost always be some kind of other book because I just love learning the systems. And I can play whatever character I want as long as you tell me what system you want it in. But the one that really gets me really good that I want to run / play is Kids on Bikes. It seems very easy.
I want to play in it so bad. That one sounds so fun.
It does sound a little like Shadow Dark, like you set up kind of like a little world and everything else, and then everybody kind of like gets to maneuver in that world and create what's going on. And you're like, well, I just control the big monster or whatever your entity is that you're going to use to mess with the players. And that gets to move around, and that they might not even get into it right away. It may be the characters doing all this other stuff. And of course, like a lot of us grew up with a lot of the Goonies, a lot of the Kids on Bike stuff. Stranger Things right now, which comes out at the end of the month, stuff like that. Like we all kind of have that because that was a setting for us growing up as Kids on Bikes kind of genre. So
Sam from the channel says running away is encouraged in Kids on Bikes. You have to think to survive and run. And I think there's a lot of games like that nowadays. Because they want you to understand, and it's one thing I think that Dungeons and Dragons kind of lost over the last few years, especially with the fact that they continue to make them stronger and stronger and stronger, is it's okay to run. It's okay to retreat. It's not an
Yeah.
issue.
Well, and to
So
adding to that, it's a book that me and Sam both have, which
mhm.
is Monsters Know What They're Doing. And that was
Yeah.
a complete mind blower for that, because you sit
Yeah.
down and you start thinking, you know, like some of these monsters have like a family at home and they're not going to sit there and try and die. And then it puts this whole like thing that we've been led to believe with Dungeons and Dragons, like you just walk in, you kill everybody. There's no way out. You just kill the monsters,
Yeah,
you walk on.
it's Diablo style, right?
Yeah.
Like
And
know,
now you're
I'm gonna
kind of
go.
like, you know, so as a player, sometimes I'm like, what if this guy's got kids at home? I don't know if I want to kill this goblin, you know?
Yeah. But look at some of your bigger names when you, I mean, the bigger stories, APs, the actual plays, and the large live play stuff. They do the same thing. There's a lot more emotional things to it. One second, I'm gonna mute. So Jacob, you take over for a second. My cat is like attacking something on the other side of the computer.
No, cat.
Oh, no.
So one of the big things I want to ask you about,
Yeah.
because it's actually on my wish list from y'all, and I think a set of dice is what actually got me interested in it, because I'm one of the people on Instagram that has a huge set of dice, and y'all have
Yeah.
like an ocean blue set of dice, and I'm like, I really want this set.
Ooh. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you know, I stuck around, or not sticking around, but I still follow you guys on Instagram, and whenever you guys put out the cartographer thing, like that's on my wish list, because
Oh,
I'm
cool.
like, I used to draw maps as a kid, not
Yeah.
thinking anything about D&D or whatever, and then
Right.
you guys put that out, and I was like, oh my god, I need one of these, because that's my childhood. So I was like,
Yeah.
Oh, did we start talking about his book?
We talked about cartographer.
Yeah, I'm looking at it too. I'm looking at getting it as well because I liked. I'm trying to think of the other book I've used before. There was another
Well,
one.
and think about it. What if you took cartographer as a thing, and in our Vampire the Masquerade game, or even in Dress to Quest or any of the other games we run, what if you had this thing for the players to be like, hey, here's a map, just like doodle and figure out what you
Mhm.
want out of our world. And so I love that you had that come out, and that it's so like, I don't want to say invigorating or anything, but it gives you the rush as a player to also be like, hey, I could fill this out and have like this.
Yeah.
And at the same time, as a DM, be like, I'm doing this anyway, let's go. Like,
Yeah.
you know.
Exactly.
So
One
I
thing I
mean,
really enjoyed with Cartograph is using it as a session zero tool. So me and all the players will come and sit down and we'll play a session of Cartograph. So we'll all build the world together and then we'll play in it.
yeah.
And that has been like a really valuable thing for getting players to buy into the lore of the world, because I don't need to do an exposition lore dump to get people invested in the cool stuff that's in the world, because they probably made all of the cool stuff in the world
Right.
when we played Cartograph, right? So I found it really valuable for that as like a session zero sort of tool. You know, getting the players involved in the world building in any way you can is always a good thing. Almost like you were saying before, how you were like, what are the banner colors for this Templar folks?
Yeah.
Like, and immediately everyone's got more buy-in. You don't have to bore them with the lore dump because they're part of the lore as well. You know,
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you think about it, you know, we've talked to other APs and things that larger names and whatnot, and
Yeah.
that's part of what it is, right? Is like before they're even provided that sitting down at the table, they've been given this book of lore that's like, here, these are the things you can know about the world.
Yeah.
And a lot of us don't have that time and energy to do that. Like, it's not possible.
Yeah. Absolutely.
We're not getting paid for this, so there's that.
Yeah.
But I still believe though that it still makes it very much the buy-in, because like you said, is you feel like you're a part of the world. You've written your characters so that they are a part of the world. They're not just there. They're actually doing something. They're providing some sort of purpose in this world.
Yeah.
The one I've used before, and I used this a long time ago, and I just saw the name of it. I couldn't, and I lost it again. Darn it! Dawn of Worlds is the one I've used before. But I'm curious to see how yours is different.
Yeah.
So,
Or adds to it, you know.
or adds to it. Yeah.
Yeah, you might be able
Heck
to use it
yeah.
in conjunction.
Yeah. Because Dawn of Worlds is built like you are gods, is how it's, and then
Right.
every player has so many points, and as you go around, you can do certain things as you go around the world, and based on the age depends on how many points you get for what you're trying to do. So if you're in first age, most of your points, for very little points, you can build mountain ranges, you can build forests, you can build lakes and oceans, that kind of thing. But then by the time you're in third or fourth age, it takes 1 or 2 points to build, a city or a civilization, but it takes 9 points to put a new mountain up, because now we've got to figure out how that came apart. Like,
okay.
And you can build 500, 600, 1,000 years in a night, and you're like, okay. And it's not all fleshed out, but it definitely gives you those quick parameters to play around in.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna have to check that out. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, it was a neat idea. I did it with my first campaign that I ever, like, my first homebrew campaign that I wrote with my friends. And we did it. And we did it online, because I just pulled up an incarnate map and I drew like a very simple looking blob on the screen. I was like, all right, everybody plot your, and then we just shared screen and let everybody have control. So we would just grab a mouse and plug stuff in. It was a lot of fun. Awesome. So it didn't look great at all. Like, it was terrible looking, but it was still something we could play around in.
Look, as long as it's functional, that's all.
Right, exactly. But yeah, I'm curious. Like I said, I'm curious to see how Cartograph does similar, or maybe it's a different type completely. Which either way, I think it's fun. So Quiet Year is the other one. I've never done the Quiet Year. I kind of want to try it to see, because I've heard a lot of people say that one's a really good one too.
The Quiet Year is great. It's definitely more focused, I think, in the type of narrative you're exploring in the Quiet Year. Like, you are playing like a community that is facing hardship, and that is like the core tenet of like everything else. And so the map building is kind of centered around that. Whereas I think, by the looks of the in games of like Dawn of Worlds or in Cartograph and stuff, the focus is more on like exploring the world in whatever direction you want to take it.
Yeah, and I think the difference between the Quiet Year and the Dawn of Worlds is the fact that you're not really exploring the world in Dawn of Worlds. You're just building it. True. You're building it out, and then you're like, okay, cool. We've got our 1,000 years done. Now we're going to plant our players so that we can actually start and figure out what's in this world. And it sounds like Cartograph might be that middle ground, which I'm really excited to see then. So
absolutely. Have you guys ever played Microscope?
I've never. So like I've played it originally. I played a game called Microscope back in like the 90s. That was like a video game, but I don't remember it as a TTRPG.
Yeah.
So
that's another world building TTRPG. It's a GM-less one, and I really like Microscope too. You're kind of plotting out like the entire history of an entire world from day dot to like the end of civilization.
Oh, wow.
And when it's your turn, you kind of have agency to define a particular era or like a period of time, and you can kind of zoom into whatever scale you want. And you're not necessarily role playing as like gods or anything like that, but there are moments where you might say, okay, there's 100 years war that took place in this particular era of history. And then another player might be like, I actually want to know what happened to the king during that. So let's zoom all the way into an event where the king got assassinated.
Oh, wow.
And that will all take on roles within a scene and try and answer a question that we're sort of posing to try and establish something in history. And it's really, really a fantastic world building tool to collaborate with folks. And it's got a lot of really clever mechanics in there that allow people that are usually maybe more quiet at the table to have some agency and sort of like put some roots in with some world building and stuff. So it's very good at encouraging everybody to contribute to it. It's a great game.
Neat. Yeah, it's in this. So like, because I just like Googled, because I was trying to find the name of the one I was looking for.
Oh yeah.
And Microscope was like the first one that popped up. It's like, boop. So I was like, oh wow, look at that.
Yep.
And then Fate, and then the Quiet Year, like the three main ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. And then as soon as I scrolled down past like the ones that were pulled up by AI, then it was like, oh no, Dawn of World is the world building school. And I was like, look at that. See, I knew I was right. I just didn't know what it was called. So, but
nice.
Yeah. So what kind of brought you to that? Like kind of break it down for us then. What is Cartograph?
Yeah, okay. So as you've probably gathered, it's a map making role-playing game. It's solo. It's a solo role-playing game first and foremost, but you can also play it GM-less. You can also play it guided. I sometimes play it guided at conventions to sort of help people learn the rules and all that kind of stuff. But it's a pretty simple game. Like, the teach isn't very long. But yeah, at its core, you or the group you're playing with are all going to be playing cartographers that have traveled to a new land with the goal of exploring it. And you establish a more concrete goal right at the start. Maybe you're looking for a late family member. Maybe your organization from your homeland has told you that you need to go and find a new place. Maybe you're trying to like find a cure to some cataclysm that's happened back home. Whatever it is, your cartographers are landing at this new place, and then over the course of the game, you basically follow this cycle of play where you'll be using like a fistful of six-sided dice and rolling them onto a map page, and where the dice land and on what side dictates what's there on the map. So,
Oh,
if you have two sets of dice, you have like biome dice and landmark dice. And if you roll, say, a 6 on a landmark dice, that means where that 6 landed on the map is a city. And, if you get like 2 3s on your biome dice, that represents a mountain range stretching from that dice all the way to the other dice. And so you roll these dice onto the page and you start drawing out this map round by round. You don't do the map all at once. And then your cartographers will choose the location to go to. You'll visit that location and you'll like draw a card from a deck of playing cards that'll point you to a prompt. And the prompts are sort of designed to be these open-ended kind of questions that encourage you to world build in this place. And so you go to, say, this city, and the prompt might say something like, a usurper is here and they've taken over from the people that were here before. How does that look? And what is the usurper's main doctrine that's causing everybody strife or whatever? And then you talk amongst yourselves, you do some world building. And then slowly but surely, over the course of the game, you like map this place out. You come up with lore and history and cultures and different people, and hopefully by the end, you got a pretty fleshed out homebrew setting. And there's a bit of like resource management in there as well to sort of like gamify some more of those elements. It's not just purely a writing exercise or anything. But yeah, that's like the core premise of it. So you're like these cartographers, and you're slowly exploring this map as you journey through it.
I might have to get that, because the only reason I'm saying the reason I'm saying that though is I think what
awesome.
I would do is, instead of doing it where we would do the cartographer consistently and then build out everything, would probably do is we'd go until we find a spot that everybody wants to plant in, and then we would go there, and then we'd run a small campaign there, like a small adventure there, and then then you go back to cartographer, do the rolls again, and then come back to the camp. Because like, especially for my Shadow Dart campaign, because of the fact that we build everything out as we go. So they've only know of 2 different places. They know the city they've been in, and they know the capital city where everything is hell anyway. So they don't want to go there. They know of a mountain range that has a tunnel that goes somewhere, but they don't know where that goes. So it's like, okay, you've got these ideas. We don't know what happens. So it'd be kind of cool to be like, okay, well, let's roll this and see what happens. Okay, now we can pick a cartographer to see where that goes. So I'm like, but I'm not I'm not a digital person. I'll want the digital copy for like referencing, but I like my books.
The book
right.
Yeah.
If
So
you are planning to grab it, a little hot tip: we're sort of working with a distributor at the moment to sort of make shipping cheaper for US folks.
Yeah.
So wait until next year, like January, to buy it, and then it'll be a lot cheaper for shipping.
Okay.
Buy ours together.
Yeah.
Can we get like 6 of them? There we go.
Yeah, right. Well, I'm trying to think, because I have friends of mine in Australia. Like, if I have them grab it there and then just fly with it to me.
Look, it's a pretty light book. You'd probably be able to tuck it on some onboard luggage or something pretty easily.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. I got some buddies of mine that are coming to GaryCon in 2 years, and I was like, can I wait 2 years? That's a hard question. I don't like waiting.
Do we have any cons that Tabletop Misfits is going to in Australia?
That's
what we need.
That is to be determined. I was invited to 2 last year, and there was no way in heck I was getting to it. It might not be a convention, but I might be in Australia this summer, so we'll see what happens. So
if worst comes to worst, I think we're potentially coming over for Gen Con next year. So
okay. So,
awesome.
We'll be there. Our entire team will be there pretty much.
Fantastic.
So, but yeah, that needs to happen. Sam, when are you going to? You're going to PAX Aus, right? Next year, since she's in the channel now. I'm going to ask her. I'm going to call her straight out.
Heck yeah!
So we'll be at PAX too. So
yeah, we'll be at PAX U in next week. So,
that's pretty soon, huh?
The other question would be: is Sam, you don't have anybody coming from Australia that would be able to grab the book before PAX U, do you?
We want to roll dice, Sam.
We want to roll dice. I mean, the funny thing is like, actually, wait, I'm staying with a bunch of Kiwis. Like, this is actually a possibility. I could get this. They're in New Zealand, but I'm sure it's a lot cheaper to get to New Zealand than it is to get to the US.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
We'll talk about that because I actually can get that then because I'm staying with a bunch of them and they're flying in, but I don't know when they get here. So we'd have to make this move quick.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. She just said, the people you're staying with. Yeah, I got you. Thanks. My brain finally loaded up for a second.
So kind of coming back to it,
Yeah.
I want to know what are some other projects that that you have, like your top 3 of what you actually like put your heart and soul into, that you're like, I love this. If anybody plays this, or if you buy one product from us or 3 products from us, these are what I recommend that you buy.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So
You know,
we released a.
and I want to know, like, is Cartographer one of those, or are you like, no, that's like a number 4? There's 3 that I would absolutely say get these over that.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I think I would put I think Cartograph, sorry, is a really good role playing game. I think it does what it's trying to do really well. I'm pretty proud of the design in that one. But there are all of our other games. Well, not all of our other games. Some of our other games are a bit lesser known because they're like earlier designs or they're smaller books or we just didn't do as much marketing for them or whatever. So one I want to call out is called In the Shadow of Glory. And In the Shadow of Glory was my wife's first game that she designed, officially. She's designed little ones before that. And In the Shadow of Glory, it's a 2-player letter writing game where one player plays as a hero and another player plays as a villain in a superpowered world. But the whole premise of the game is not to explore like the battles or the superpowers you have, all of the big action parts of it. It's more to explore the nostalgic kind of relationship that the villain and the hero have with each other, and the loneliness and the isolation that comes with being one of the most powerful beings on the planet and not having anyone to talk to about it. So it's like this really melancholy kind of emotional game, and it's interesting in that it's a letter writing game. So you don't have to sit down in a session and play it. You can just do it via literal letters. You can send emails over the course of months. You can do whatever format works for you.
Yeah.
But that one's a really great game, and I think that's an awesome one people should check out. And then we released a game earlier this year, which is a solo role-playing game called Caught in the Rain. Caught in the Rain is an investigative mystery role-playing game, and I think it does a really interesting and exemplary job of this particular problem that exists in solo role-playing games, where if you're playing a solo game and you want to play a mystery game, it's incredibly difficult to make that mystery satisfying because you need to play the GM and you need to be the player. So how do you make a compelling mystery that like obfuscates the answer or makes it satisfying when you attain clues? Because you kind of have to know what the answer to the mystery is, right? So that's kind of like a hard problem that's existed in solo role playing for like a fair while. It's kind of just like, oh, if you want to run a mystery game in solo, probably best not to do it because it just probably won't be satisfying. But I think that we've probably done a pretty good crack at fixing that issue in this game. So we've put a lot of cool systems in place that use a deck of cards that allow you to sort of generate these clues and generate a mystery without generating the answer to the mystery. But the mechanisms in the game allow the clues you find to make narrative sense. And it has that really great element of like slowly figuring things out and piecing things together that make cohesive sense in the narrative. And there's red herrings and there's, dead leads and all that kind of stuff that make everything pretty like engaging. And so I think it does a really good job of doing those sort of mysteries, particularly in a solo sense. So I don't know if you guys are solo players. It doesn't sound like you have the need to play solo because you have a big group of players, but nonetheless,
sometimes you do. Sometimes you do.
Sometimes.
You gotta hang up your dice set for still using a dice set. No, one of my friends.
No, I don't. I'm not hanging
one
my
of my
dice
friends. Right. One of my friends, Soloist Venture, actually, I think has played that one, and so I've gotten to talk with her a little bit of that, and I know that she's played a bunch of the games that y'all have.
Cool.
But there is some I feel like if I want to see any like solo type of games, that's the person I go to. But I'm glad that we have somebody like that in our space because there are so many other ones that. Like you said earlier, they do go under the table either because somebody's not picking it up, they're not playing it, you're not seeing it, and it sometimes doesn't get the advertisement that it should. So
totally.
Which that second one, I want to call it Candlelight. I know that's not it. We have a game that somebody else in Misfits has actually proposed to us, the Brothers game. I can't remember what it's called, but that's kind of what it sounds like too.
Yeah. I'll get that. You give me.
But I mean, it'll.
Yeah.
I think that would be another one we could do as a rotation for us, actually, personally, for Tabletop Misfits, because somebody said, "Oh, well, I like this kind of game. This sounds cool," and this one sounds right up our alley of that game as well. So,
Yeah.
it'll be a little cooler though, because you get to be a hero and a villain, and we're exchanging stuff versus two brothers. One's infected and the other one's not. But
Yeah. But you could definitely make that work. That'd be cool. Yeah. I'm going to spruik one more game, if you'll allow me.
Okay.
The third one is one of my earlier role-playing games, and it's called Host, and it's a pretty small zine. It's about 20 pages, and it uses entirely a deck of playing cards to play, just a normal poker deck. And one player plays as a parasite that has infected the mind of the other player, who is the host. And this parasite could be like a demonic parasite. It could be an alien parasite. It could be the parasite of depression, whatever it is. But slowly over the course of the game, you sort of play this like competitive card game where you're establishing the memories of the host person, and the parasite has the goal of trying to twist those memories into some kind of falsehood that achieves its goal. So if it's the alien parasite, maybe it's warping your memories so that you're, isolating from your loved ones so that you can go and lay some eggs or whatever. Or if you're the parasite of depression, maybe it's just pure isolation. Whatever it is, it's a horror-themed game where you're establishing these memories while the parasite tries to corrupt them, and the host player is instead trying to repress them before the parasite can consume them. So I think that one's a pretty cool, under-the-radar one of our games that doesn't sell a whole lot, but I think it's got a cool premise.
What is that one called again?
Host.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like playing Venom.
That's also
yeah, exactly. You could definitely use it to play Venom.
That was the first thing I thought of, because the symbiote has a different mindset than the player, right? The person. I was gonna say the game you were talking about earlier, Jacob, is The Time We Have is what it's called.
Yeah,
and
this was my last soloist one that I bought, which is Void.
Yeah, Void is a good game. I love Void.
I hate that I can't run it anywhere, or I'd talk James into it, but it's like you have to do that and you have to play music, because I've made a twist to it where I was like, oh man, it can be like a 2-player game, and I'm like, but how do you put that out without somebody being like, you're using music you're not supposed to, you don't have the rights to that. I'm like, dang it.
Yeah, we'll have to do that just behind the scenes. Like I said, we can always play games without having it be on a stream. It doesn't have to be everything doesn't have to be streamed. But yeah, no, the Time We Have, it's about two brothers. One is infected, one is not, and it's the idea of trying to find the cure for the infected brother.
Cool.
But from what I was told about it is we can't see each other, so it's all done just by words.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I don't know how that works.
Or
we have an
screens are off.
Yeah, screens are off. Or at least screens are off for us. Others will be able to, of course, see it because they'll be watching it on a show on this, but we won't be able to see ourselves, which will be an interesting concept, right? Like, because I won't be able to tell either. But yeah, it was definitely the idea that's for a while there, and I had a couple other guests that have asked the question, and then I'm just like, what is the point of a solo RPG? But then I do notice, though, a lot of times they're very good ways to break you out of those GM slumps, though. Yeah, because it just lets the brain move a little bit again, and it's like, oh, look, I figured something out. 100%. Especially for skills that you don't normally utilize or that you're not very good at. Like me, mysteries are great, but there are tools of a mystery though that are very difficult to produce, like well. So how to get better? You go find a mystery one shot, and you're like, oh look, now I understand a little bit more of how that works. So, and if you've come up with a system that allows you to utilize it multiple times, then that means that there is a way to do it. We just nobody's figured it out until you guys figured it out.
Well, playing a few of the soloist ones myself, like I feel like if you can put yourself in a box where you go, whoa, like I didn't even think about that, and you're doing it to yourself, and you're like, I should see this coming. It's one of those like you're hitting your reset button, and you're like, I don't understand what's going on. But it's fun. And then kind of like we talked about at the beginning of the stream, when you roll that back into playing a game with other people, you go, if I'm enjoying this, if I'm putting this out myself, and everybody else is doing it, like I'm doing my job pretty well. You know?
I have to ask this one just because it's not going to be me, but I definitely have friends of mine that will love this.
Yeah.
Kaiju generator? What the heck?
Yeah. It's just a little supplement. Like, it's not a game. It's a tool. But Nicholas, he used to be a school teacher, and he designed this supplement. And in one of his classes, he had a student that was super obsessed with kaiju. And every time he was doing some sort of class assignment, I think he was trying to figure out ways he could roll it into being some kind of kaiju themed assignment or whatever. And so Nicholas thought it would be cool to sort of make up a bunch of tables and like prompts and stuff to help generate new kaiju. And he really originally designed it for this kid, but it ended up being really, really cool. And he popped it up on itch.io and it got decent reception. So we decided to publish it just as a really, quick and easy little tool. If you want to generate some kind of devastating world-ending monster for your games, you can just roll on a few tables, answer a few prompts and stuff, and get this really unique kaiju that you can just throw into whatever setting you want.
You tell Nicholas he has ruined kids on bikes for everybody that's going to play it.
That's what.
What do you mean we're fighting a kaiju?
That's perfect. Yeah,
that would be funny though. Do kids on bikes and then do the kaiju generator, and it's like, you don't have to attack the thing, but like you have to figure out how this thing works or like investigate it, that kind of thing. Come up with its weaknesses, because then you got to report that back to the secret agency that that kids have been hired for some weird ass.
You also get that really cool thing because you're like, okay, I've used this kaiju. Okay, there's the anime kaiju number 8, but you throw that out, you go, okay, you guys were kids on bikes in this one town. That was kaiju number 1. Now we're going for number 2. We'll keep going, guys. And you just keep playing like more kaijus with like more abilities in every different town. And you're like, at some point, I think we're going to get tired of it. And you're like, we're on kaiju 20. Are we tired of it yet? Keep going.
Yeah. It does sound fun though.
See, and that's one other thing that I really like about a lot of the games that I see you guys put out is I feel like it's endless that you could pull one thing and you could pull something else and you go, let's put this together and create like a game. And then you go, oh, there's another thing that's out. Let's do this and let's do that. So there's a lot of it you could use together to like make one Uber game, and it just makes it a lot of fun because now there's all these little bitty pieces that have now made this big beautiful thing, and you're like, oh man, like who thought we would be able to do this,
Right. Yeah, no, you've definitely given me an idea for a one shot of kids on bikes go investigate the kaiju. Like that's
maybe a 2-shot.
I mean, it probably has to be a 2-shot because it's pretty big ideal.
Well, and Kids on Bikes does have a map system, but I mean, Cartographer, it seems like it's going to have a lot better setup of that than that one is, because that one's like you roll, you drop a pin, you have a dot on it or something, and then you roll and see what's there. And I'm like, what if I roll really good? Like some of us are prone to rolling 20s.
Yeah.
Like, what if I roll 3 20s and it's like, there's like 3 public pools beside each other?
Yeah.
Does that seem fun?
Yeah. No, I mean, maybe there's that issue.
Maybe for a water kaiju.
Yeah, true.
Yeah,
that's true.
So we are technically past the start of happy hour. Happy hours are 30 minutes at the end of the show where we ask our audience, anybody that's in the channel, to ask questions to the three of us. They can ask anything they want. You have the opportunity, of course, or the option to deny a question, but normally they are based within our realm. So I haven't really had in too many. But Classic Sam NYGM says, do you have a schedule to release games and ideas, or do you just release the things as they're ready?
We try to have some kind of schedule, like it's kind of that interesting thing that's been a change with Ravensridge. Like we used to just release games whenever they were ready for the hell of it, but we've kind of realized we want this to be a successful business that I can quit my damn day job and actually do this full time, which is the pipe dream, right?
Same thing.
We're all working on it.
Right? Yeah, we're all working on it, but part of that is we've realized we need to actually sort of have a cadence where we're trying to release games at some kind of regularity, and we've realized part of the income that a business gets is through crowdfunding, and so we're just basically trying to hit one crowdfunder game every year, which hasn't been too bad considering there are 3 designers amongst us. So we're always creating new games and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so we have a game coming out next year called 1000 Rats Devour a City, where you play as 1000 rats trying to devour a city. Who would have thought? But yeah, so that's like the next game we're coming out, and that's going to be a bit of a crowdfunder. And that one's we're kind of blending some board game elements with some role playing elements. So we're bringing in some like board game componentry, and we're sort of bringing in some playing cards, player boards, dice, and all extra fun things that I love having at the table. So, but yeah, we're trying to have a cadence where we plan out a project over the course of like a year to a year and a half, so we kind of know what we're working towards, especially because now we're making sure we have robust playtesting and stuff for our games, because it's you need to have that for a well-designed game, I think, and that takes a lot of time to get people in to playtest games and to make tweaks and all that kind of stuff.
How long is your playtesting normally?
So we do 3 rounds of playtesting. We do like an internal playtesting, which is kind of an ongoing thing throughout the whole development, where we playtest with the internal team, and then we have like a private playtesting where we kind of open it up to some folks within our community who are usually on board to do some playtesting or play with our main groups, and that will just usually go for like a couple of months, and then we do a public playtesting on our Discord, which is usually 1 or 2 months with playtesting, where we try and facilitate a bunch of games and gather as much feedback as we can. But usually by that point, we're focusing our feedback on particular problems within the design, rather than just like play the game and did you enjoy it, like, because that's not super helpful from a developer's standpoint to know. You kind of need to actually figure out the minutia of what's going wrong so you can fix it. But yeah, so we have those three phases, and it usually stretches over like 6 to 8 months.
Okay, so it's more so the first 3 to 4 months is the implementation or the creation phase, and during that time you're starting to implement your feedback phase, which is just internally, and then from there you start pushing it out about 6 months in, it sounds like. So another question: what inspirations do you and your developers take for your games? Like, for instance, nobody, like, I'm curious of the next one coming out. 1000 rats take over a city. Where did that come from?
Oh, this is the $1 million question for anybody doing something artistic, right? Where does your inspiration come from? I think, like, for us, it kind of comes from everywhere. I think you get like little bits of inspiration from the media you consume. You get bits of inspiration from seeing like other designers create things. You get inspiration from the games that you play, where you're like, wow, that was a sick mechanic, or I really liked how they did the graphic design of that, or like it can pop up from anywhere. 1000 Rats was inspired by another business that we're good friends with here in Australia. They're called 1000 Rats, and I just thought their business name was fantastic. I was like, that's great, I love it. And they do a lot of rat themed branding and stuff, and they released a game called Curses and Covens, which is a board game, a fantastic board game, and they're great folks. But that kind of was the initial thing where I was like, 1000 rats, that's pretty cool. What would 1000 rats do? They would devour a city.
They would devour a city.
They would devour a city.
I'm thinking immediately Ratatouille. You've got the giant rat-like colony above this old lady's house. And...
yeah, absolutely.
See, well, for me, it makes me think of, I think it's called 1828, the Stephen King book about the rats.
Oh yeah.
And like, it's the guy, like, all this stuff's happened. Now he's like modern day writing the story, and he's like, everywhere I go, they're in the walls, and they're trying to scratch through, and you're like, what?
That's spooky.
Come to New York City. That's 1/4 of Staten Island. There's that too, and those aren't small rats either. Those are like big old, like, nasty New York City rats. They're big.
Damn. I just hope that none of the rats, like, their tails come intertwined and there's a rat king that comes out of it. 1000 rat king would be kaiju level, and that would be scary.
That would be terrifying.
When you playtest, another question: when you playtest, what criteria makes the game not ready to launch?
Okay. I think the biggest one is friction. So with our designs, we really try to make sure that the systems in place are facilitating the story that the game is trying to tell, that the folks at the table are trying to tell, or if it's solo, that you're trying to tell. And I think when we notice points of friction, which could manifest in the form of like a player being like, okay, so I want to go do this thing narratively. I need to like refer back to the rules and then like break away from the immersion of the story to consult something that wasn't a simple enough rule to memorize, or it was just something complicated that they need to refer to. When that immersion breaks, when that friction happens between having to like disengage with the story to go and do some kind of like housekeeping or bookkeeping, whatever it is,
Yeah.
if that friction is too like jarring, then we're like, that's not ready for launch. So friction is like the huge one that we sort of look out for.
That makes sense, especially for a solo or a 2-person RPG, because the goal is, I'm guessing the goal for this mostly for you is to make sure that from start to finish they don't really get out of the story. The idea is just to quickly roll through the story
and immerse into it.
Which that's awesome, and that's a great idea.
I think it also is like, because we have a lot of resource management is kind of a common theme amongst a lot of our games. So another part of the playtesting is that classic balance. Like, are these particular actions that the player can take giving them too many resources and then the game becomes too easy, or vice versa? Is this particular part of the game too challenging? So we do a lot of spreadsheets and a lot of Python scripts to like check we're doing correct balance for all this sort of stuff. And that's a bit of a lengthy process too.
Yeah, and I'm going to drop this one in there for everybody to see. So we have seen the 1,000 Rats by Devour a City, but they have a free version on their channel or on their website. There's 100 Rats Devour a Tavern.
Yeah.
So that's the simple version, I'm guessing, of what is coming out soon, which is awesome. And a good way to play test. That's a sneaky way to play test. Like, oh no, it's free. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I have another question.
Go for it.
Yeah.
What is a game that you guys that you would love to see that you guys make that you haven't gotten to actually get into yet? Like maybe a type or something like that.
There's a game that I've kind of been working on, like on the back burner for a fair while, and it's called Alpha Directive, and it's just like this. It's a bit of a sci-fi game. This was kind of my attempt to push myself into a zone that I wasn't as comfortable with, but it's like a far-flung dying Earth sort of genre. Like the dying Earth thing kind of interested me because I was like, I kind of want to know the origins of like the spell slot thing that D&D took, and they came from this dying Earth novel by a dude called Jack Vance, and that novel is egregious. I hate it. It's a terrible, terrible novel, but it's very dated and misogynistic and stuff. So I wasn't super into the novel, but it was interesting to see where that spell slot concept came from. But the concept of the dying Earth, which was the main genre that this was set in, is like so far flung into the future that like the sun is expanding and the Earth is going to die within a matter of years, sort of thing, is kind of like the premise. So the whole planet is like fucked basically. And that theme kind of really interested me, so I wanted to do a sci-fi game that kind of sat within that. And the Alpha Directive, the game, you play as these bioroids, which are kind of like a mix between androids that have absorbed some human consciousness, and they also have some organic parts. And you're in this one final city that is like left on Earth, which is called the Palisade Prominence. And in the Palisade, all of the mechanical like elements of the city are actually made out of biology. So the subway is like an intestinal tract that peristalsis takes you from one place to another.
Oh, wow, that's
the
cool.
huge data banks of servers are actually jet brains housed in these like containment units and stuff. And so the Alpha Directive is this like signal that has come from out in the wastes that has hit a few of these bioroids, which are the player characters, that are compelling them to do some particular thing. And so it might be to venture out in the wastes and find out where the signal's coming from. It might be go and find out what the origin of all of the biological takeover for the planet was, or whatever it is. But it's a game about like both exploring this bizarre world that's kind of biopunk, and also there's a mechanic in the game that I was really trying to work on that I think is kind of cool, where your character has a bunch of these directives, which are like narrative rules that your character has to follow, and it's kind of taking from that like iRobot, Isaac Asimov, the directives that the robots have to adhere to.
You can't cross the three rules of being a robot. Yeah,
exactly. So every player has their own different directives. So their directives might be I can never harm a living being, or their directive might be like I have to always help a robot in need, or whatever it is. And they kind of add these interesting narrative rules that the players have to adhere to. But on top of that, if they successfully do these directives, they get to unlock these core memories, because these robots have been alive for like hundreds of thousands of years, and their memories of who they used to be have disintegrated, but they can kind of unlock them by, falling back into doing these directives. And so you kind of don't have to come up with too much of a backstory for your character. You figure it out as you play by unlocking these core memories. But yeah, that's one that I've like put on the back burner for years, and I've never really got to develop.
That sounds awesome.
It sounds awesome though. Yeah, it
you.
does sound though. It's probably like I said. It's more of a challenge for you because similar to me, it's not your wheelhouse, right? Like in going through and even coming up with the ideas of like the the train or the locomotion of whatever it is moving similar to like an intestinal tract. I was like, okay, that's a neat concept, like in itself, that the world has kind of started to build within its like grow within itself in order to stay alive, which I thought was a cool idea.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, produce it, and they will come.
Do it so we can play it.
So I can play it. Yeah.
No. I mean, growing up, Cyborg 009 was one of my like favorite shows and everything. So I mean that kind of sounds like the aspect of you have the robots, so they're all trying to do their own stuff, and they're like, I don't know who I am. How do I find this out? And like you said, they find the signal, and
totally.
Let me see if I have. Probably misplaced it while I'm doing this, but we do have, and I always like to at least roll one, but it looks like my computer's being dumb at the moment. Normally we have a roll table that we use in order to find out an interesting question for each one of our guests, and I'm just trying to find out where I put my darn questions.
Okay. I was like, if you have the questions, we can be like, Brandon, you want to roll the dice for us?
No, that's normally what we do. We tell Brandon to roll the dice, but for some reason, my thing is I've misplaced them, and I know if Chuck was here, he'd be like, "Yeah, but it's on this. It's here." And I'm like, "Yeah, you're right." I don't know where it's at the moment. So yeah, that's. I'm going to ask Chuck's question because this seems to be something that is very interesting for a lot of people. As a player or a game master, what is your highest high and what is your lowest low? And that's where we'll call and after this, we'll call the evening.
Oh, okay. I think I can think of my lowest low first. And this is the Dungeon Master. And I had a friend, a queer friend, and she was sort of exploring her identity through player characters and all that kind of stuff. So she was playing a few different player characters of different gender identities and all that kind of stuff. But I hadn't really clocked on to that was what she was engaging with the game for. I was still in the mindset, we're just here to like create a story, and we never really sat down and talked about it or anything. So I wasn't fully aware that she was sort of exploring her identity through these different characters until after the fact. And she found a character that she was really resonating with, and this is when she was like thinking about transitioning and all that kind of stuff, which I also wasn't aware of. But she was playing a female character, and there was like this huge sea monster that came and attacked the players on this ship because they were heading through these dangerous waters, and her character ended up dying. And in hindsight, I should not have like let her character die, I think, because it hit her really hard. Like she had a lot of bleed into the character, and I think it was very like a bit of a trauma for her to like see this character she finally resonated with in a gender identity element, and then have that ripped away because the character died. Like she had to take a step back from the campaign and stuff for a while. And in hindsight, I should have either like had conversations with her about like, what are you trying to get out of the story and all that kind of stuff. So I could have realized, the gender identity was something she was exploring. So that was definitely a miss on my part. I think that was one of the moments where I failed as a GM to sort of create a safe and healthy story in place for my players. But it's a learning experience, right? And we all make mistakes.
I almost did that with my kids, so I completely agree with you on this one.
Yeah. But that's why conversations are really helpful, right? Making sure you have these open conversations so that everybody's on the same page. But yeah, so that was probably my lowest low. Highest high. Ooh, what would that have been? I think there was a moment in one of our Ravensridge games set in the city of Ravensridge, and I like to have like my factions that I've got in the game that are kind of present to the story. I like them to kind of do stuff in the background, so that there's always this like unseen ticking clock that if the players don't do something, this faction might achieve its goal and then change things irrevocably. And so the players, they were kind of like fluffing around a little bit, and they were taking on these little side quests, and I kept trying to hint at like there's this vampire faction that are like they're going to be doing some crazy shit, and you've seen elements of what they've been doing in the city leading up to this point. You've seen that they're like trying to make contact with these demons, and they just kept not engaging with it. And so then one time we sat down for a session, and they woke up and the skies were like blotted out red, and they walked out into the streets of Ravensridge and there was like nobody anywhere. And then they like walked around the city trying to find out what was going on, and all of the humans in the city had been enthralled by this vampiric spell that the demon has sort of given the gift of to this vampire faction. And they basically taken all of the civilization, all of the population of Ravensridge to this like cathedral, where they were just one by one draining them of blood so the vampire countess could just have her endless fill, feeding her. And they were just like absolutely stunned. They were floored, and like my players were like, that was the craziest moment ever. And that was such a validating, cool thing to happen, because it was great that the players kind of ignored the story and the hints that I was dropping, because it culminated in this moment where they couldn't ignore it anymore. And it showed them that there are consequences for ignoring these kind of things, but it happened in a really wonderful way for the story. And then they were kind of like, it kind of turned into like an apocalyptic situation, because everybody in the city was kind of dead, and they were trying to figure out how they could take down this vampire countess. So that was a really cool high for me.
That's awesome. That's like a shift of like a twist to like a Curse of Strahd type mentality. Yeah, that's awesome. And that is a great spot for us to end, because that was amazing. That moment would have been awesome to see just fulfill. So real quick, before we go through all of our sponsors and we give a shout out to some other things we got to take care of tonight, real quick, let's know, how can they find you?
So we're the Ravensridge Emporium on all social media platforms. So we're on Instagram, we're on TikTok, we're on Blue Sky, we're on YouTube. We also have a Discord you can join if you want to participate in some playtests for our game, or stay up to date with our latest, whatever we're producing. And there's also our website, the Ravensridge Emporium, where you can find our artisan dice, you can find our role-playing games. And we also have a mailing list if you want to really put your finger to our pulse. And you can sign up to that on our website as well.
Awesome. Well, once again, it was awesome to have you here. Let me drop real
Thank you
quick.
for having me.
Oh, it was great, and it was such a wonderful conversation. Real quick, we don't get this done by ourselves. Thanks to our wonderful sponsors this year, Monument Studios. You can hear all the cool music in the background. It does sound like it might have cut because I didn't hit the button, but that's my own fault, not theirs. So I'll turn that on as we end. Go check them out with the code MISFIT, and you get 30% off or 3 months free. Also, if you like wonderful math rocks, you can go hang out with our friends over at Canadian Dice and get 15% off with the code MISFIT15 over at canadiandice.ca. Looking for apparel like you see on Jacob right here, you can pick that up over at dungeongrandmaster.com. And last but not least, our brand new sponsor for our painting show that goes on tomorrow is the wonderful people over at Last Hope Printing. You can use the code 15 for a whopping 40% off of all of your 3D printing and 3D printed minis and paint needs. That is the craziness that is happening, and the thank yous we had for all of our wonderful sponsors. Last but not least, tomorrow night, this breaks down the schedule for the week. Tomorrow night we have Beaker's Garage, where he's going to be doing painting for RX-78-2, the original Gundam. And then Sunday we're returning for the next episode of Power Rangers, Guardians of the Grid. And then Monday we return for Dress to Quest, where I'll be GMing again. We'll be GMing our world of Icewind Dale in a very twisted way, because I have read the book, but we do all sorts of crazy stuff in that thing. And then we'll be back here the following week with another new guest here at the Tavern. Ways you can help us. You can share this stuff. You can follow us. You can subscribe if you've got a little bit of extra cash on your hands. Or you can come hang out with us over in the Discord, where you get all the notifications, because that's the best way to find us. Until then, once again, just a big thank you to Brandon over at the Ravensridge Emporium and his entire team, because they are doing some crazy stuff out there. You will see some stuff highlighted once we get a hold of the new once we get a hold of some of the RPGs, as we will highlight some of this stuff as the new year comes around. We have a lot to highlight. We have a lot of RPGs laying around. We got a lot that we got to take care of. But if you want to find out what's happening, that's the best place to find us, is at the Discord. Until then, raise your glasses high. This is Last Call. We will see you guys all next week for another episode of Tavern Talks. Stick around for us, if you would, for just a couple minutes while we raid some friends, and we'll close out for the evening. Have a wonderful evening.